Go shop. Took a week off last week for Easter, but now we are back for episode 3.
That was partially my fault. I was out of town, so
Well, it's the holidays, you know.
yeah.
Family comes first. Except right now, music comes first, because we have a new EP that we want to talk about. And by new, I mean it came out in 1996.
Yeah, that's it's something. I'll let
So
Cooper start this
to
off.
give a little background, so this upcoming week, it's finals at college. We're very busy men. So we decided to take a shorter project to look at, a EP, which is an extended play, so a little shorter than an album, but several songs long. So we decided to go for an album that both of us had never heard before from an artist neither of us ever listened to. And that's how we landed on, quite randomly actually, Come to Daddy by Aphex Twin. So
Now,
this is...
Don't be pushing this off on me. You're the one that found this.
I did find it, but to be fair, I was looking at several lists, and this was ranked very highly among the best EPs of all time. And I guess we'll see how much that stands. But while looking into it, so Aphex Twin is actually a single man. The name makes you think it's multiple people, but it's actually a single guy. His name is Richard David James. So his stage name is Aphex Twins. He's a British musician, and he's best known for his ambient techno and intelligent dance music. So if those genre warnings don't give you much of a sense of what this is going into, you're kind of getting it better now. Though he is really one of the most acclaimed figures in contemporary electronic dance music. Or not even dance music, I guess just electronic music. I wouldn't call this dance music too much.
This is not dance music, no.
But as for an artist, just to get a taste of what we're getting into as a man, he's just reading up on him. He's a bit of a weirdo. I don't want to say weirdo, but he's eccentric. I guess if you have money, you're eccentric. Where where basically he owns a tank, like an actual tank, and maybe a submarine. That one's disputed. And he really likes putting his face on the album art, doing this like smile. If you look at his album art, pretty much everyone has the exact same smile on it. Very, very creepy smile. Yeah. But he does have the credentials to back himself up because multiple artists from the 2000s and 90s have claimed him as an influence, such as Radiohead all the way up to Skrillex. So these are some big names saying that he's one of the biggest influences on their music. So he's kind of the ground rock for these more electro music's going to the new millennium. And like I said before, his genres kind of covered are electronic, ambient, experimental. He did like 6 albums, 5 of them in the 90s and the one recently. But he's really best known for his extensive EP listings, where he has like, I didn't count them up, it was like 15. There's like at least a dozen of them. So multiple EPs he came out with. And this one, Come to Daddy, is considered one of his best.
Okay.
So, and specifically the song Come to Daddy is considered one of his most well-known songs.
Now, which
even then it only topped the charts at like number 36 out of 100. So even his best well-known music is still pretty underground. So this is very experimental, niche kind of music.
Now, when you say Come to Daddy, we should specify there are 3 songs on this album titled Come to Daddy.
This is an 8-song album, and 3 of them are remixes of Come to Daddy. I'm talking about Come to Daddy Papa Mix, the first song on the album.
Okay. So
Which is...
do you want to launch off with that one, then?
I guess we should probably start with song number 1 of Come to Daddy Papa Mix, the first song on the album, on the EP Come to Daddy. So we should probably start off by saying there are 3 remixes of Come to Daddy on this album, but all 3 of them sound nothing alike. When you think remix, you probably think they're very similar with like tweaks and maybe some extra vocals. No, these are completely different songs, just all with the same name.
So,
go
ahead.
Oh yeah. So for this first one, it definitely starts off on an aggressive note. Wouldn't you agree, Sam?
I wouldn't really call it music, if I'm being honest. It's a garbage disposal like sound with there's 3 lines in the whole song. I want your soul. I will eat your soul.
Eat your soul.
And come to daddy. And
these are all said right off the bat.
Just repeated over and over again over the top of the most aggressive electronic music I've ever heard. It's like if was it metal guitar and metal screaming had a baby, and then they accidentally dropped it into a garbage disposal.
I believe the term for that is industrial.
Yes, thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
It sounds like you're at some sort of plant that's making like nuts and bolts, and it's just crunching it out. So this first song, extremely aggressive, very blood pumping. As Sam mentioned with the lyrics, "I will eat your soul." This isn't exactly grandma's electronica. This is 1996 electronica. So we got anger at living in America, despite it being a pretty nice time in the 90s.
Wasn't he British?
I guess anger living in Britain in the 1990s, which I don't know much about. But it's electronic, so it's a very extreme electronica. The vocals, the little that there are very distorted and sinister. Certainly has a very evil vibe to it.
Yeah.
And not in terms of the percussion, it's like very sporadic and aggressive. It's hard to latch onto the percussion since it keeps jumping over in tempo and like amount of aggressiveness to it.
The audio, the one I don't have many notes for this album because there's just not much. I couldn't think of anything to say. There's a lot of instances where it just sounds like it's being recorded through a microphone that's like constantly peaking. You know, like it's being maxed out and it can't record anything more than it already is. It's just
It does have some loud screeching noises that kind of fuel into the violence, but aren't necessarily positives when it comes to the listening experience.
and then
Experience. I think overall this album's going more for a feel than like actual music.
yeah, this is not something you sit down and like, yeah, I'm gonna stare at the wall and listen to this album. This is something that you kind of throw on in the background while you're doing anything else, and you try and ignore it.
To be fair, the first time I listened to this album, I was actually going on my run. So that as like exercise music, this is actually pretty good just to like give you the like visceral like just I need to start doing something energy.
I will say it probably is great for running since how repetitive it is. I say this a ton throughout my notes, and it's one of the only constants of this album is he takes like 6 or 8 bars and just repeats them constantly. There's no new themes. Sometimes he layers something new over top every once in a while, and then it drops out, but it's just repetition.
I do have a note later in my review about how this album doesn't exactly make good examples of song progression.
Yeah,
He really hits you with all he's got right out of the gate.
it's I want to liken it to you give a kid a new toy that makes a sound, and they just sit there and press the button over and over and over again until the batteries die.
Except it makes all the sounds in this toy at the same time.
Exactly. The end of this song specifically, I have being described as lasers next to cars driving by on the freeway.
It's actually pretty accurate. Though, to be honest, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't like this song as much on my first time, even while I was running. But listening back through the second time, if you come into it knowing how aggressive it's going to be, it gets the job done. I actually kind of like how industrial it really commits to the tone. And it's got a little bit of harmonics in it with the electronica, just enough to have something to latch on to during the song, besides, the metal. But I think in terms of like getting across that angry emotion and making the listener feel that as well, I think it very much succeeds at that.
I gotta say, first off, I've only listened through it once. Literally, like, I finished 5 minutes before we started doing this.
We are a very professional institute here.
Hey, I got exams tomorrow. I gotta study.
That's fair. Sure.
I don't have much positive to say about this first song. Like you said, if I had expected, I tried to listen to it in the shower the other day. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take a longer shower. I'll listen to this a bit. I couldn't distinguish.
I'm sure the roommates love that one.
I couldn't even distinguish what the difference between the music and the water hitting the ground. So
and it's also a running theme of this EP where the sound effects are numerous and many, and they keep popping up.
It's something for sure. This one. It's aggressive. It very, very aggressive and very screamo-y, but without the screamo.
If that's all I have to say about Come to Daddy Papa Mix, I think if we want to take a completely different route in terms of listening to the music, we've always got the next song on the album. Song number 2 is called Film, and it is a complete change in tone and style from the last song. This one is basically ambient music.
Mm-hmm.
It's got this softer percussion, very melodic chiming keyboards, and it's very stripped back. The percussion itself is stable, but it's like very muted compared to the first song.
Yeah, I immediately have this is 100 times better than the previous song written down, and my mind instantly jumped back to when I was a kid and I would play Bejeweled Deluxe 2. It feels
Ooh, that's a
very,
good one.
very repetitive, very puzzle gamey kind of music. Again, not something you sit there and listen to, but something that's on in the background while you do something else.
Except this one's a very different kind of background. This isn't like working out background. This is like studying or reading a book background.
Yeah, this is
which is interesting to have back to back on an EP.
That's one word for it for sure.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned Bejeweled too, because I was thinking that this sounds almost like a Minecraft soundtrack song, where it's very
I wouldn't go that far. But.
It's very repetitive, but it's got that low key, melodic, not too hard to listen to, but very much in the background kind of music.
Not enough plinky plonky for Minecraft.
It's still kind of plinky plonky.
Yeah, but it was more like puzzle game, kind of like it. A lot of the music from here on out very much reminded me of like, oh, we got this new indie game, and you got to solve puzzles, and it's like Portal, but with Minecraft. I was like, okay, yeah. Hey, that's what hipster music seeks to replicate.
That's fair. And honestly, I think this song does a great job of doing it. In terms of just that background study music, it's actually extremely pleasant. Maybe it's just like the kind of palate cleanser after how aggressive the first song is. This one really comes in with kind of, riding that afterwave and kind of a good cool down, even though we're only 2 songs into an 8-song EP.
And dear Lord, we needed the cool down.
Because let's just say, honestly, these first 2 songs are probably the least weird ones of the entire EP. Maybe the first one's a little on the weirder side, but it doesn't get more normal on average.
I 100% disagree. The first one is pretty weird, but the rest, I guess, are more out there than aggressive. So I see where you're coming from, personally.
Well, I guess if we've already covered the first Come to Daddy, it's very, we should probably go to the next Come to Daddy. This is of course, the first one was the Papa mix. And where do you go from Papa? Of course, the Little Lord Fauntleroy mix. So as I said earlier, this one actually doesn't sound anything like the first song, really in any capacity.
Yeah, my favorite part is how it starts, where it's like, oh crap, did my headphone jack fall out? Oh no, that's just the sound.
It's got the glitchy, kind of distorted feel going on.
It sounds like you take your headphone jack most of the way out and then plug it fully in at the end. It's which is certainly a sound, and
it's intentional. Yeah, you have to give him that.
I don't think the song has anything to do with the first, other than the word "daddy" being used, and it's technically on the same LP.
That's true, and it's definitely a lot less aggressive. It's still got that sinister vibe to it, though. The vocals themselves, I guess, the vocals of the first song were creepy and very in your face with "I Will Eat Your Soul." This one I couldn't help but find a little more hilarious, of the ooh you daddy little boy. He just keeps repeating that daddy little boy with these kind of whispery and croaky vocals.
Yeah, I despise the vocals on this one. I really dislike when a singer's tongue is licking my eardrum. It physically hurts me. I cannot stand it.
It's an intimate song.
I don't understand why anyone thinks that's good in this day and age. Like, if you have this on in the car, fine, maybe I could tolerate it. But if you're listening to it with headphones, it feels like the tongue is going through one ear and then out the other. It's not pleasant in the slightest.
To be fair, this song is, in terms of day and age, this was made in 1996, so this was pretty cutting edge in terms of like experimental electronic music. I mean, this whole EP is older than the last artist that we reviewed, so.
Yeah, experimental is certainly one way to put it. I have this one was especially repetitive. There's only like 6 or 8 bars of music for the whole thing.
Yes,
sorry, for the whole song in quotation marks.
And it's still a 4-minute song, so
in quotation marks, yes. It just gets too dang repetitive, like.
Which I think is a major problem throughout this album. I guess if you're going for the ambient angle, it sort of works, but the song is, or the album's so all over the place in terms of like actually committing to being ambient or not. It's kind of hard to even view it as that.
Each song in itself is all over the place too. It just jumps from one genre, and then there's suddenly a cut in the middle for no reason, or like there's a cut in the middle of the music just because they forgot to wrap it or whatever, or it's just because it's so underground and experimental. You know?
It's a rather discombobulating experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't much care for the snare on this song either. Or this very consistent and almost too loud, kind of.
Yeah, I'd noticed that too. It was the the music was repetitive, yes, but the snare just completely chopped all of it away.
The snare is eternal.
That's all you could hear. It
Even
was
especially over the kind of the keys doing the chords and the little boy vocals doing the little boy vocals. It really stood out.
not in a good way.
Not the best way. Though I still consider it a better song than our next one. Would you like to pronounce this title, Sam?
Uh, would you say that has an S sound or?
I think it's Bacephalus, bouncing ball. Bacephalus, bouncing ball.
I want to say Boosphallus.
Ooh, I like that way too.
It sounds a bit better.
Now, either way, the song's the titles, at least the bouncing ball part, I say, was pretty on point.
I didn't even see that until the end of the song when I went to write about it. It was exactly correct. It sounds like somebody took either a metal ball and was dropping it against the ground, or as I put it, it adds the musical stylings of a wooden spoon against a pot.
It really does feel like you're falling through some sort of like endless metallic Rube Goldberg machine. Like all these different parts, as you fall farther, like different machine parts are like crunching around you.
I was mainly thinking back to when I was a child and I would pull all the pots and pans out from under the sink and take a wooden spoon and bang on it until my mom yelled at me.
So as you can tell from our descriptions, this album is very, even on a very metallic EP already, this one goes full metal. And not like rock metal, like literal material metal. Sounds like there's a lot of clanking, a lot of cranking. There's this constant like sound that is almost like the electronic version of a screw being tightened. And this metallic percussion. All compound on top of each other. And there is keyboard, but even that's like extremely electronic.
And
where
that's
it's like
just
almost
at the beginning too.
And it's starting to like even lack melody by the end.
Yeah, the beginning I have is very video gamey again, musicy, kind of 8-bit kind of stuff. And then midway through, it just evolves into some person just testing different sounds from the sound library and then repeating them and running them backwards because like, oh, it sounds really cool when you run it backwards, man.
And then going from ear to ear.
And then going back and forth and like, oh, what if we had like a metal ball bouncing, right? And then you hear it in one ear, but then it jumps to the other. And then it goes back and forth, getting faster and faster. And then we play those sounds backwards, right? So you get the big hit at the beginning and it kind of fades out. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
It does. Now, we should mention that when we say the back half of this song is almost 6 minutes long. So that's about 3 minutes of like what sounds like metallic balls bouncing with almost zero percussion or instrumentals behind it.
I thought the song changed like 2 or 3 times while I was listening to this. The amount of cuts and like changing styles is just ridiculous.
So it's definitely, he commits to the bouncing ball motif. So it's determined, it works for what it is, but it's not good music in the traditional sense.
For sure, I absolutely got bouncing ball from this, but I didn't get music from this.
A bit of a whoopsie, but we're back.
Well, OBS went down too. I wonder if my internet went down for a second.
Oh man, not even our programs could survive the bouncing metal balls.
Oh god, yeah.
I think we talked about that one enough. Let's move on.
We talked about that one too much.
So this next one's called To Cure a Weakling Child, Contour Regard. I'm not sure what that title means, but I think this is one of the better songs on the album. This one is, lo and behold, there's actually song progression on this one, where like it's different at the end than it is at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's different at the end doesn't mean it's progression. The first thing that jumped to my mind when I started listening to this was corrupted 8-bit music. Just
it does have very.
Playing in
the beginning has this very like vacuous. It has like a lot of abstract sounds that aren't really in any discernible pattern. It's kind of switching from ear to ear, so you're kind of worried that you're getting another bouncing ball song going. But as the song goes along, they all kind of come together and start like forming. I guess I won't say a chorus, but they come together and form this sound motif where like each time it kind of cuts out to more vacuous abstract music, it comes back stronger with some more instruments. So I think it does build towards a satisfying end over the course of this song.
It builds about midway through. I feel like the building is equated to I'm just going to throw some strings in here and pull out everything else that I've been doing. But I mean, it does change from the beginning to the end, which is more than can be said about most of the songs on this
So does
helping.
building, and even with when it gets a little more melodic and the sounds come together, I think it is at least a more enjoyable experience.
Somewhat. The big thing that I didn't like about this one was there's voices that you can hear, but they're distorted to the point that it just sounds like insects buzzing,
Hmm.
which I can't really handle. That was
It's like a melding of like vocals and like electronic keyboard,
right, exactly.
and it does have a little bit of some synthy synth. Or it's like if you imagine synth, this is the most synth imaginable, kind of going in the background.
Yeah,
But I think overall, this one does have some positive attributes, at least compared to some of the last few songs, of like building on itself and taking these weirder abstract sounds and stitching them together into actual music.
yeah. It's more of a song certainly than the previous. It's still very rough, but it's a song nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a song and it still maintains the vibe of this album, if there is one definitive vibe.
Yes.
Yeah, so
The next is Funny Little Man, which
would you like to talk about this one, Sam?
oh boy, this album has been a trip, man. Like,
This song's actually legitimately made me laugh out loud several times.
so the big theme of this one is it's some kid saying like, "Come on, funny little man," and he just
I'm not even sure.
stretches it.
I'm not sure if it's like a distorted man or like a woman or like some sort of elderly child.
I bet
It's
it's
like
him. If I had to put money on it, I would bet
it's
it
very
was him.
difficult to like describe who would make this kind of vocals.
But he just kind of like stretches it to make it hold notes and sound weird, and like plays it backwards and makes it sound gravelly, and just sends it all over the place.
Yeah, so like I said, it's a little on the creepy side too, with the "come on, little funny man" being repeated and repeated. This is I don't want to say the word funk because this is very much not funk, but the synth is a little more I guess farty is the word, a little more funky, but it's like so overpowered by the vocals doing their weird vocal thing
Yeah.
that it's I don't know. I think it is going for maybe not comedy, but this is supposed to be a little more silly.
It is supposed to be silly, but I don't think it's supposed to be taken as a joke, which is how I feel it is.
I mean, I liked it as a joke, not necessarily like laughing at it, but just laughing with the vocals,
Yeah. It's
especially that last part of the song where it kind of cuts out and it's just the vocals. He says something about like I'd like to suck up your bunghole.
yeah, that I have it
Sounds like
written.
Beavis and Butthead dialogue.
The very end is some text to speech, and I'm terrible first listen figuring out what the heck is being said, but I have written down it sounds like they were saying something bad.
They did say some naughty words in the end. This is not a family friendly album. And when you get up to this point,
Yeah.
honestly, even without vocals, I wouldn't say this is family friendly.
Yeah, no, it'd probably make children cry.
This is what they thought when they said corrupting the youth. There was this music.
Yeah, exactly. And of
This
course,
gives you the dark thoughts.
it wouldn't be on this LP if it didn't repeat musical bars like it's nobody's business. So
Yeah, this one was, even in this album, this one was probably one of the most repetitive.
I don't think he introduced a single new musical concept throughout the whole thing, other than changing some vocals here and there.
I wouldn't say he didn't introduce new things. I mean, if anything, each song is so different from the other. You have to kind of respect that.
Just
It's
like
just- I
you
just-
respect a car crash or a train crash.
Exactly. Well, no, I wouldn't say that far. But the fact that like each song doesn't, it kind of throws everything it has at once at the song. So like right into the gate, this is what this song is. So I guess you can't really call it progression throughout the album because it doesn't really have a set destination. But each song is a different monster than the last one.
Yeah, like murder versus larceny.
I'm starting to get your overall opinion of this album. Sam.
Is it coming out a little bit through this?
Just a little bit.
I was trying to be completely impartial throughout this whole process. So,
Well,
jumping on to the next one. Of
our
course,
final mix.
third and final, Come to Daddy. It's the Mummy remix, and sadly this one does not feature Brendan Fraser.
I wish.
It would make it much, much better if it did. Of
I'd
course,
even take Tom Cruise.
yeah. Again, no relation to the previous two Come to Daddy songs. It starts with kind of cicadas chirping on a warm summer night, is what I want to say, but electronic.
But in the least relaxing way possible.
Yes, not in a relaxing way. If you've ever been anywhere where there's cicadas on a warm summer night, the cicadas are dive bombing you and attacking while chirping on a warm summer night.
Yes, this one definitely is probably the most aggressive song since the first Come to Daddy, in terms of just the percussion and the industrial feel coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But it maintains the aggression while also being a lot more stripped back than the first Come to Daddy, I feel. Like it's a mixture of the other two Come to Daddies. I've said Come to Daddy like 8 times in this last 20 seconds.
We need a Come to Daddy counter.
Yes.
So this one puts some speaking above just these electronic bell sounds in an attempt to drive some meaning to the song. If you can't hear the questioning in my voice, then I'm questioning it because it's just kind of some electronic bell sounds, and he slaps some talking over the top every once in a while.
It's trying to give you meaning. It's a very open-ended trying to give you meaning.
Yeah.
He does not want to give you a definitive answer, especially in that, if you remember in the last half of the song where he says, like, actually the one time the vocals are, like, non-distorted and very clear. He just says, go on, give us a snare rush.
Yeah.
And this, like, cacophony just hits you. And this was, like,
honest.
a lot of these songs, there's at least, like, a little bit of keyboard to, like, grab onto as a listener of, like, this is this is what I have to listen through. This is my guideline. But after that snare rush, it just kind of devolves into deliberate noise, but I wouldn't say enjoyable noise.
Yeah, hey, it just jumps back and forth to repeating different sounds. Again, backwards, forwards, left, right, whatever you want to do. It's a cacophony, to say the least.
Though if I had to give the song one positive, I did like the ending where it had this kind of glitchy applause, or like it was cutting in and out. I don't know, it felt a little self-aware.
Was it self-aware, or is he that much of a big head that he was actually applauding himself on completing the song?
No, I think it's self-aware. I mean, I don't think, if I took away this album, at least he has, like, he knows how weird he's going with these things. And he's kind of pushing that.
Anyway,
I don't think he's like...
So.
I mean, he made plenty of EPs, so I think at this point, you'd at least know that this is his style, so...
Yeah, that's very true. Jumping to the last one, then.
This one, I honestly didn't have too much to write about this one.
Yeah, it's, again, very, very repetitive. It's titled IZ-US. I assume it's Is Us, but I'm not sure.
Who knows at this point?
Yeah.
This one is actually a little similar to, it was pretty similar to Film, actually, the second song of the album. But just, like, slightly different. It really didn't have too much going on with it.
Very forgettable as the last song on the album.
Yeah, honestly, I would have heard the third Come to Daddy on this. At least with that applause break at the end, it would have had some sort of closure.
Yeah, this one certainly helped to chill you out after the chaos that was the whole album, though. It's again it wouldn't be a song on this LP if it wasn't extremely repetitive throughout the whole thing. So
that is the one constant feature throughout these songs.
But, or it's repetitive to a T.
So he commits to it, but
yeah.
Committing to that doesn't necessarily make it good.
It's also the most chill on the album, which I enjoyed, but
yeah, it was a good cool down, but nothing really stuck out instrumental wise. Just kind of a nice little electronic ditty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we said, we actually kept this one pretty short for since it was a shorter EP.
Even though there was that little break in the middle of
that was our intermission.
I'll have to stitch those two together instead of just uploading two separate halves.
Of course, give us the full Come to Daddy experience.
Yeah. You want to start with your rating, Cooper? So to go over the ratings again real quick, the top of the list is obviously showroom, like the floor of a dealership. Like new, fixer-upper, used rental, and then scrapyard being the worst of the worst. All car stuff because, we're a shop.
Yeah, we're the audio shop. We have to commit to the theme.
Yeah.
So, I know I've been harping on this album. I've had some negative things to say about this. But I think if you dig deep, there are some overall positives. In terms of, like, my favorite songs to worst favorite songs, I'd say the best ones are probably Come to Daddy, the Poppy mix, so I have to specify, and To Cure a Weakling Child. Come to Daddy, I'm sometimes a sucker for those very aggressive industrial rock kind of things, having that electronica that just kind of builds on top of itself, even if it doesn't progress too much of as a song. I appreciate how committed it was to the kind of Violet vibe. And I also like To Cure a Weakling Child just because it was able to take these very disparate elements and slowly build them together. So by the end of the song, it was like a full melodic type chorus. In terms of my least favorite songs, number one is definitely the Bouncing Ball song. It is actually difficult to listen through just because you get both bored and you just have these kind of annoying bouncing ball vibes in your ears. Sure, it's experimental. Sure, it's something different. But at least for me, that's not something I'm looking for in an album too much. And then my also other least favorite song is Come to Daddy, the Mummy mix. Just because, again, it doesn't have the aggression of the first Come to Daddy, and it's not laid back, and it just kind of devolves into this almost senseless noise. So
I'm going to have to completely disagree with you on that.
Come to Daddy. Always finish.
No. We got to go through the favorite songs before we rate the album.
Okay.
Come to Daddy, Pappy Mix is my absolute least favorite song on the album.
Oh, you actually didn't like that one?
Yeah.
Interesting.
If I couldn't, maybe I didn't make it obvious when I was talking about it. But,
I don't think it'd be your least favorite.
It's pretty bad. Followed in a close second by Come to Daddy, Little Fauntleroy Mix. Sorry, Little Lord Fauntleroy Mix. Just the aggression in the first one, and the peaking audio, and just the general random sounds at the end of the first Come to Daddy, and then the second one, the child licking my eardrums as it felt, and the incessant repetition that became a theme for the rest of the album was just not enjoyable in the slightest.
Okay.
My favorite, though, I would have to say, would be Film. That one was... Okay. I don't know if it's just because of how much I hated the two that surrounded it, but that one was like, all right, well, this is at least I can have this on in the background and it's not going to distract me. You know?
Now, I would agree with you on Film. It was probably my third favorite out of all of them. But I do disagree with the Come to Daddy Pappy mix. Just because I think with this type of album, you have to commit to either the full-on aggression, like you have in Come to Daddy Poppy mix, or the full-on ambient music that you have in Film. And at least for Come to Daddy Poppy mix, it does completely immerse itself in that violent industrial sound. So that even if it's not I guess it's not necessarily my cup of tea, but for that kind of full-on emotion of helping trigger that kind of anger that music can trigger, I think it succeeds wonderfully, and that kind of makes me appreciate it more than maybe just your regular angry industrial sound song.
Hey, it's okay to be wrong. It's fine.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to be raging out to this in your car,
Sam, sometimes I'm a very angry person. I need to express myself healthily.
I think another part of why I've not been a huge fan of this album in general is I'm in my very chill music phase right now, where I'm listening to a lot of jazz, a lot of, smooth rock kind of stuff. So this really is not meshing with what I've been listening to recently, which probably affects my judgment just a little bit. You want to give your overall rating?
Yeah, so as I said, I think there's some positive aspects to this album. I don't think it's necessarily you should say something's good because it's experimental for experimental's sake. Obviously, this influenced a lot of big-name artists like Radiohead and Skrillex, and they went on to make, in my opinion, better music. But I think even as that kind of like ground bed influence of like more experimental electronica, if that's something that you like, being able to see, this is where this came from, this is how far we've grown in 20 years of music, I'd say it's probably a used rental type rating. I don't want to trash it completely and put it in the scrapyard, because I think if there is some merit here, I know that, especially in electronic cycles, it's very, very popular as a grandfather type album of helping create these trends. But as your average modern day listener, I think it's probably better to look at this as a building block sort of relic than as an album you should listen through all the way through.
I've got a very differing opinion, if you couldn't tell, from me beating this album down the entire time.
Oh, you think it's Share Room?
Yeah, oh. I think it's the scrapyard. It was it was garbage start to finish, in my opinion. And I know I always say that I'm a sucker for electronic, but whatever this was not what I listened to. Not electronic the way I enjoy it. It was more of, modem starting up in the 90s, CRT TV turning off and turning on, kind of electronic rather than beeps and bloops and blops and flips. So it's it made it difficult to write things to talk about, just because it was like
very abstract.
Very abstract. There wasn't anything from really for me to ground onto. Be like, I don't like this. It's just because when you like something, you can say a lot. When you really dislike something, you can say a lot. But when the only thing that there is about this is electronic noises and repeating the same 8 bars, you can only talk about those 8 bars for so long.
It's a bit like trying to describe like impressionist art, Words can only really describe this more abstract emotion that you get from music as much as, something that's a little more concrete.
Yeah. I guess putting it in terms of expression actually helps me a bit. So imagine that this album is just a big blue square painted onto a canvas. I would call it lazy. There's my definition right there.
Now, I would disagree with it being lazy. Everything in here sounds extremely deliberate. It's not random. It's meant to be in its place. So I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what OBS wanted from us. Either this album is absolutely destroying my internet, or the OBS update that I updated to right before this is really bad, and I made the right decision for the past 3 weeks to not update. So
I like the first one better.
Yeah.
So just to reiterate one more time, in case you didn't hear it. Basically, obviously we didn't have very positive things to say about this album, but if you do get the chance, at least check out the first 2 songs, Come to Daddy, Poppy Mix, and Film, because I think that represents the 2 widest deviations that this album has to offer.
And I would suggest just skipping it all together, because it's not the greatest album in the world. It's more of a, again, industrial. You could go to like your local power plant and get the same experience.
I guess that's maybe why it's listed as an influence and not as an example.
Yes, not good in the slightest.
Oh well. I think all music has some merit, but this is certainly less listenable than your average album.
I agree with you, all music has merit, but I don't think this reaches the definition of music.
Oof. Oh man. Poor Aphex Twin. Well, I guess that's all we have to say about this EP for today.
And hopefully we'll figure out what the heck's going on with OBS by next time. I'm not sure. It must be the update. Because I don't think it's my internet. Maybe it's YouTube.
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll figure it out this next time.
And if you want to check out the complete stitched together run of this podcast, you can check it out on youtube.com. Just search Audio Shop. And we got the same logo as the Twitch. Don't have a custom URL yet because the account's not old enough. So...
Well, we're getting there. Yeah. We're almost old enough.
And you want to link them to the Twitter, Coop?
Yes, I will. So the Twitter is AudioShop. That's at AudioShop14. So follow us if you want to know what album we're going to listen to next and the times that we're going to go on.
Yep. We usually shoot for around 7 p.m.
7 p.m. on Sundays.
EST, I should say.
Ah, yes, Eastern Standard Time.
For our Canadian and United Kingdom listeners.
Or literally anyone else in the world.
Yeah, but yeah, this next weekend you're actually going to be up here, right, Coop? So we got to figure out.
I will. It'll be our first live audio shop. So, yeah. But we'll have to figure that out later.
We might have to sit in separate rooms and record still, because I'm not sure if your mic can pick up both of us or if my mic can pick up. I know mine can't, but
as long as we can hold hands throughout the entire thing, I'll be okay with it.
We'll talk about that later. And we'll hopefully pick a bit more exciting album next time. Maybe, I mean, we've done a couple shows now. It might be time to jump to something like classic rock or something like that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
certainly something. Oh, what was that?
Sorry, we do this live, obviously, live on Twitch.tv, Audio Shop. If you're watching this on YouTube, and Cooper Kaboom brings up a good point. Drunk Audio Shop podcast. That might make it a bit more high energy. Although this time I've been studying for finals for the past 4 days, so sue me. But
And this wasn't an album to get the most excited about.
exactly.
But, oh yeah, well, we'll see. That will be our. If this is our Pappy mix, that will be our. Or I guess this is the more low key one.
This is the Mummy mix. Yeah.
This is the Mummy mix. That would be the Pappy mix.
Yeah. All right. Well, we should wrap it up there again before it crashes for one final time.
All right. Thank you so much for listening again. And we hope to hear you back next Monday or next Sunday.
Don't get them confused now.
No, Sunday. It's a Sunday.
Sunday podcast. Have a good rest of your week, everybody.
All right. See ya.